Hi there, I'm Dr. Francesca Zampollo, and in this video, I will share with you everything that is most exciting and interesting in food design today through the eyes of Ana Gutman. Ana Gutman is a food designer, photographer, and creative director based in Mexico City, who explores food through its material, healing, and emotional properties. Her work as a food designer led her to participate in important design fairs such as Dutch Design Week 2020. She is currently collaborating in various projects that seek to have a powerful, positive impact on the food industry. I have asked Ana to participate in an industry project a while back, asking her to prepare this presentation, which was then part of a bigger workshop. The content of the presentation was so good that had to be shared. This is one of the 7 presentations collected on that workshop. I hope you will enjoy the video and the presentation, and in the meantime, have a lovely day and happy food design.
Just a little bit of background as to who I am and what I've been doing around here. I consider myself to be a food designer and photographer that explores the emotional connection of food here based in Mexico City. Food design and a food designer to me is somebody that uses food as a material, as we have heard currently in all of these presentations. I find it so interesting that this is a recurring theme of using food as this ephemeral, emotional material. Maybe you can think about it even as if it was wood or plastic or some other material that you can work with using a design methodology. So that's how I think about being a food designer. And I come from a product design background, industrial design. So I know very well how to work with materials, how to think about maybe on a smaller scale of products, objects, experiences, things like that. I also do come from a photography background and plastic arts program. So you can see how all of those things kind of have come together into this food design practice, because food came after studying product design. I was really looking for a little bit more of a interaction with other human beings. That's how I would put it. And food to me is such a great connector. I think that is the main key that I take away from food, that it is a connector and it has such a huge emotional charge to it. It is so powerful to work with it because every single human has some sort of relationship with food. So that's what I find fascinating, and that's why I have been working with food as my main material in all of these different types of projects that I do. So I really do want to share a little bit more of specifics into some of the work that I've done. So let's just jump right to it. I'm gonna start with this project that I'm so excited about. It's called Materia Cruda. And this actually has been my most recent project. As recent as, I would say, less than 2 weeks ago, it happened, exactly in this space that I'm in. So it's very fresh in my mind. And I'm still so excited, like I still have the rush of the event going on in my head. So this is a project that was basically an interactive experience made up of specifically designed installations that you can eat. I love the term of edible installations, and that's how I would describe most of my work. So to go into more of the specifics of what this event was about, I will tell you about this specific area. So you can imagine this was a huge area, a huge space of this event, and each area had like a specific installation thought out. So this was an interactive light table that was placed with a black tahini and hummus and a little bit of bread. And the idea here was, this whole project was a very transdisciplinary project, because I worked with an architect, a chef, a music producer, and a lighting designer. So my work with this chef was, he came to me and he was like, yes, I have this amazing black tahini. What can we do with it? This is such a beautiful product. It's so simple, but so rich in flavor. So how can we present it? How can we make an experience around this specific product? So the first thing that came to mind was, okay, this black tahini, this is like black paint. Like, I just want to touch it. I want to draw with it. I want to trace with it. So that's where the idea of this tracing table came to mind. This was a product, or this was an installation that was specifically designed for black tahini, for you to come in as a participant and to grab the bread and draw with it. So you can see here on the right side of the slide, a picture of how the piece was transforming throughout the night. And that's what I loved about this specific piece, because at first you started with this perfectly placed, beautifully aesthetic, kind of chef-like structure. But then the piece was being transformed by the people and by each personal trace that everybody was doing with their bread. And you could see that at a certain point, people were really getting into it. Like, you could see people drawing, making faces, laughing with each other, and just really exploring and playing with food through this installation and through this specific piece. You could also see, for example, the piece that is in the middle picture, which are PVC tubes that were completely blank, but were filled with different kinds of jams and marmalades. And these pieces were placed in many different places of the space. And I didn't tell you what flavors the marmalades or the jams were. You had to kind of go through the space, explore everywhere, and taste and explore and see and talk to people like, have you seen this one? This is like pineapple. This is kind of like zapote, which is all very specific Mexican flavors as well, and seasonal flavors. But it was so interesting because you could explore the space through food. And that's really what I wanted you to do, and to be very playful, explore. And you could just see people talking to each other, even if they were strangers. You could just see like, have you seen this one over here? This one tastes amazing. Have you seen this other one? You know, people were really up to it. They were running around everywhere, trying out different flavors. And that's really what I wanted you to do. And also, again, see the pieces transform, because it started out as a blank canvas, but I did not want it to be a blank canvas. I want you to interact with the piece and move around. Also think about the placement of your body. You had to kind of lean forward to see the piece or to taste the piece. You had to reach towards something. You had to move around your body. And I wanted you to do that instead of, for example, if you go to an art gallery or something like that, you already have this kind of script of going around the place. Maybe your body language is very straight up. You can't touch anything. But here, I wanted you to touch the piece and do whatever you wanted with that. So that was a really powerful thing about this specific event. Here you can see some of the visuals that I also created for this piece. And this is the same black tahini, but just in a very experimental way. I created these visuals that were projected into the space as well. So why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this to show you that, again, to be repetitive, but I'm showing you this to be, to make a point that an eating experience is not only about what you taste, but it's also what you're looking at. So you have to think about all of these different circumstances in an experience like this. Again, in an event like this, you're not only thinking about what you're eating, but also about the lighting design in a space. How does that work? Why is it red? A little while ago, we were talking about the color of the walls in a restaurant, for example. Why are they blue? Why are they red? What is their psychological background to that? Of course there is. It's all very, very intentional. And it's all to tie it up together and to make this whole experience something that is congruent and that makes sense. It's all of these different pieces that are working together to make a whole experience. So here you can see a little bit more of the event. The one picture on the left, that's the one that you see where the tahini and the hummus are like almost perfect still. That's when the chef made his magic and was just placing all of these things in a very beautiful way. But then with this little breads, you could just go ahead and do your own thing and play around again and be very explorative, be very curious about this. So again, here I'm using food design to incite playfulness and curiosity. And I would also add that for this specific project, it was a very enriching experience because of the people that I worked with. It has to be transdisciplinary for it to work. Food is not an isolated thing. So you truly, truly have to think about not only the flavor, not only how the plate looks like, or if there even is a plate, but you have to look at everything else, all the ambient, the colors. The music was specifically designed for this event as well. Every single element was thought about very intentionally. So those, I would say, that are the main takeaways for this specific experience. So now I'm gonna talk a little bit about Agua Rota. This is another project that I did in collaboration with 2 food designers. So in this case, it's a little different because here it's food designers working with food designers and a chef. So we were 4 people in total. But Agua Rota is an experience. Again, it's a food design experience and event, eating event, that visualizes the relevance of water and acknowledges the ancestral farming at the Chinampas in Xochimilco. And do not worry, I will explain what the Chinampas at Xochimilco are. So this is such an amazing, beautiful thing that we have here in Mexico City, which is the chinampas. And yes, this is in Mexico City. It's like maybe half an hour ago or away from where I am right now, which is kind of the center area. But basically the chinampas are an ancestral type of agriculture system that has been here since before the Aztecs. This has been truly the origins of how food was harvested and cultivated in the central part of Mexico. And it basically consists of floating islands that are located in Xochimilco in this lake. And basically these floating islands, I know it sounds complex, but it's actually the simplest kind of thing. So these floating islands are made by putting layers of mud from underneath the lake and just putting them together, one on top of each other, until you create an island that has such a fertile soil that is perfect for harvesting and growing crops. So here you can see a little bit of how it looks like. The picture on the left, that's, for example, some of the beautiful crops that can be grown in these islands. And there are even trees and the animals and the ecosystem that has been created around these islands is so rich and so particular to this area. And it creates some of the most nutritious and sustaining, and it's highly fertile soil that comes from the same place. It's literally just mud that has been taken from the bottom of that lake to create these islands. And you kind of go around these islands and you travel around using these trajineras. That's what those little, like, you can see boats are. I wouldn't say they're boats. It's a trajinera. That's what it's called. But that's how you can travel around these islands. So with all of that in mind, we really wanted to talk about this ancestral farming agriculture system in Mexico City, but to also talk about the importance of water and to take care of water, because we have seen a lot of issues concerning the water around the chinampas. There are also many like areas within the agriculture system of the chinampas that are of domestic use, or they're like houses and people that are living there, but the water is not being used in a proper way, and there's a lot of waste that is coming into the water that is feeding the crops. So we really wanted to talk about this issue and this situation through this eating experience, where basically we first wanted to bring you into the chinampas experience by bringing in these type of pools inside of this closed area. And in these pools, you have little floating plates that are filled with food that has grown in the chinampas. So the food and the crops from there, we brought it back here, and now it's floating in these pools, and you can kind of eat it and you can pass around the plates. And it also actually becomes a very playful experience as well, because you're kind of leaning into these pools, you're eating out of these plates, and you're passing them around, and it's a very playful experience, but it's also to open this dialogue about this situation. You can see a little bit of the setup here, how it was made up. inside of this very chic kind of studio here in La Roma in Mexico City. But we brought the chinampas concept inside. So again, in this case, food design was used as a vessel to share ideas and to open dialogues. As the people were eating and passing around the plates, the floating plates, we were talking about the types of food that are growing in the chinampas. We were talking about the water, what is happening with the water over there, how can we help, what is the dialogue around that, and it just opens up a great space to talk about these kind of situations. So, so now I'm gonna go into another project. This one is a project that I've co-founded and I've worked for or worked with and in creation of for about 6 years now. And it is basically a project that transforms jackfruit into plant-based products, but following a very specific circular production system and fair trade. So the very interesting thing about this project is that we're not only thinking about the product or the final product that is coming out of this project. Since the very, very beginning, we were thinking about every single aspect of the production system, from where it comes from, how it's being harvested, what happens to the waste that is created, every single element. So in this specific case, we are working with a community in Jalpan, which is about 2-3 hours away from Mexico City. And this community is very special because it already had jackfruit trees and a lot of jackfruit production, but it was not moving. It was being wasted. Jackfruits were literally on the ground, being wasted. Maybe a few birds were kind of eating them, pecking at them, but literally when I saw it, it was like lands and lands of just wasted jackfruit. And through this project, we made a lot of research into this amazing fruit. We know all of the highly, highly beneficial aspects of it, its nutritional values and its sustainable values. So we knew that we had to take advantage of this resource that was already there, but was not being used properly. So we're working with this community to use the jackfruit that is already there and to keep the work there as well, because we're building this cooperative co-op, I think it's called in English, of 10 women from that specific town that are working with the jackfruit the way that we learned how to and the way that we need the product to be. We came in there, we talked about it, we all kind of learned how to work with the jackfruit together. And now the work is being kept there in that town. It is generating another source of income, and the resource that was already there is not being wasted anymore. So the jackfruit is worked there, and then we bring it back here to Mexico City, where there is a demand for those kind of products. Here you can see the products. We commercialize it, we brand the products, and we bring in what we know, stores and restaurants need here in Mexico City. So that's why you can see here, for example, the branding is very bright colors, very inclusive, very playful. We want it to be very inviting for you to try jackfruit and to see all of the work that has been done behind this product that you see here, basically. So another part of this project is very event focused, because we learned that for here in Mexico specifically, jackfruit grows quite a lot. The climate is great for it, but it's not very well known. And there are many assumptions that are made about jackfruit here in Mexican culture. It's not very well known again. So we had to design this whole events system where you could bring jackfruit closer to people for them to try it out. Again, make it very playful, colorful, inviting. That's what we wanted to create with these events. Again, you can see here, this was in collaboration with, or actually it was the launch of the FD scene from Food Design Nation, where many of the people here are collaborating on as well. But this was a very beautiful project because it was done with a lot of love and with a lot of collaboration, not only with, you know, the launch of the magazine, but it was also about inviting other projects like our friends of a fermentation project. And again, I think it was all about collaboration and community building and letting people try for themselves this amazing product and to talk about everything that was designed behind it. So in this case, I would say that food design was able to create and improve a sustainable practice, thinking about all of the different elements and the systems behind it. So now I want to share a little bit of references and examples of the food design world that are not only inspiring for me, but I do think that are the leading a lot of leading ideas in this field. So this is Ananas. Ananas is a project of, well, it's a duo. It's two girls that are of Armenian and Mexican roots, living in LA and Mexico City. So it's a little bit of a lot of cultural intermingling and intertwining coming together. And this design duo creates amazing, amazing edible installations and dining experiences that explore their cultural heritage and that also promote and encourage the audience to interact with food in an experimental way. So it's very explorational, very intentional. You can see here a few of their installations, which I find absolutely beautiful. Again, you can see here a lot of the Armenian roots working at play. You could see their use of light, of space, and of overall experience and event design that I find quite beautiful. For example, here on the left, you can see this mushroom lamp where you kind of grab these mushrooms and then you have a dip on the side. The way that the food is placed, again, it's very intentional, and you can see how also the visual impact of food is a tool that you can use for a product design, for an event design, for any kind of design project. So this other project that I find very inspiring is called Cocina Colaboratorio. So this is a project of an ongoing mobile and on-site project where they bring farmers, scientists, creatives, and chefs together around the kitchen table, again, to connect, to exchange ideas and to prototype solutions to many, many areas of the food production system and all of the issues and the situations around it. So, for example, here you can see that this particular project of theirs, they are in this town where basically they wanted to create an archive of knowledge of the different types of plants and diversity in crops and edible plants that are already in the town, but that are maybe not so utilized yet. So when you create this compilation of species of biodiversity and you create this experience where first you have this archive, you have photographs, you have all of these different types of plants placed, and you talk about the uses, you talk about the stories, like, yes, my grandmother used this one to heal wounds. Oh yeah, but this one I heard that, da, da, da. You know, all of this knowledge and all of these stories are now being heard and being, you know, coming together in this space that was designed specifically for this purpose. And for example, here you can see that the second part of the project was to actually cook with these plants that you literally just got from your backyard. So it's kind of doing this like a full circle kind of moment of being very analytic about the biodiversity, but then also being practical. Okay, now I know the information, so how can we use this as a community? How can we come together and know more about our own context and how to not lose our traditions and the ancestral knowledge that we already had, but we have to be very careful to not lose again. So here again, this is part of that same project. I find this photograph very beautiful, for example, of just creating this archive, again, of the biodiversity that you can see in this town. The simple act of placing this piece of plant or this flower in a setup like this, in an organized manner, is already doing so much for the collective information and the community, for you to see your own biodiversity in a different kind of way. All right, so let's move on to Fernando Lapos. This is a Mexican designer that has been talked about a lot, but he has a very, very interesting practice where he transforms natural ingredients and materials into design products or design explorations, design events, but basically focusing on the materials. So I will talk about Totomoshle, which is one of his projects that uses husks of corn, of maize, of heirloom Mexican corn. And this is to show the rich biodiversity of the many, many different types of corn that are alive in Mexican culture, but that are maybe not very well known or are being, how do you say, like not taken care of because of transgenics, for example. So just a few specific types of corn are being used and reproduced and harvested, but there are so many hundreds and hundreds of types of corn. Did you know this? Many people don't know this, and it's being lost. So this is a project that is showing all of the different types of corn that there is, the biodiversity, using a very simple method of visualizing by color, for example, the different types of corn. So you can see all of the different shades of the different types of maize, and he uses these husks, which is kind of like the outer layer of the corn, to create these patterns, these mosaics, and these design products, and to visualize and to talk about the preservation of this biodiversity. And in turn, whatever comes out of selling these design products becomes a source of new income for the farmers that are actually preserving the biodiversity of corn, which not many do because of economic issues. So here you can see, I wanted to show you like a little bit of the range that Fernando Lapos has, because he can have projects like Totomoshle, which is very focused on social community, on the agriculture system, but he also has very experimental kind of projects. So you can see a little bit of the range that food design can have. For example, in this one, this is a very, very conceptual project that is basically looking at how to purify materials to its, again, not to be repetitive, but to its purest form of carbon, fat, and other chemicals, and what we can then create with those specific elements and ingredients. And in the end, he came up with this charcoal soap made out of meat fat and burned out wooden spoons, basically, and other things. But yeah, this is basically a very experimental project where he explores basically the conceptual environment that surrounds food. So this other project is a very dear project of mine. They are close collaborators. They are called Colectivo Amasijo. And this is a collective of women that are ranging from very different types of ages, professions, backgrounds. And the aim here is to come together to talk about food and the problematics of the Mexican food industry through performances, dinners, celebrations, exhibitions, many different types of outputs. And again, through their work, what they do is to basically create a space for people, or actually women, to come together and to empower women to truly use food and the kitchen space as an empowerment to talk about issues, to open dialogues, and to take care of our land and our traditions and our ingredients. And again, it's a space for women to talk about, you know, their own kind of, you could even say, their secrets in the kitchen, the ancestral knowledge that has been passed down from generations. You can see it through experiences and situations like these. So now to go more specific into food design and children, I want to talk about this project that is in collaboration between Arca Tierra and Huerto Milpa Azul. Arca Tierra is a project that is actually based in the Chinampas. Do you I love how I said that, Chinampas. Do you remember the Chinampas that I just told you about maybe 20 minutes ago? So this project, Arca Tierra, works in this land of the Chinampas to preserve the land and to harvest crops, and they also create a lot of events. They invite chefs, they invite a lot of different people to the chinampas to create awareness also about the space and about this agriculture system. But in this specific case, I want to concentrate on their collaboration with Huerto Milpa Azul, which is a collective that is children focused. And they create basically designed objects, designed activities, to bring children closer to understanding where their food comes from. So their whole focus for the children activities and objects, it's to be very, very sensorial. That is their main focus. They want children to understand and to interact with food, not only by the taste, but by smelling, touching, seeing, the sound of the food, of the place. That's where their focus and where their product design and their event design comes from. They're all very sensory focused activities. Like, for example, the one on the left, you can see it's a board that was designed to be very specific about the details, the visual details and the visual indicators of each plant, and to do an assimilation. You have the real plants that you have already seen outside and you have taken out of the ground yourselves. And now let's really look at the plants. Let's really look at the details of it, the colors of it, and let them figure out maybe, you know, which is which. This one looks like this is this, you know, be very interactive, very participatory, if that's a word, and very sensorial with that. So again, you can see there's even activities like the one on the left, where the activity was to listen. That was it. That was to listen to the space. They were asking constant questions of, what are you hearing? What kind of bird do you think it is? Imitate the sound. It was very sound focused. And the ones on the right, the pictures on the right, you can see obviously those are very much tactile activities where you literally step on the soil and feel the soil and see what can you find within that soil. Like, is there little rocks within it? Is there little grass? What color is it? Is it very dark? And to really, really get to it and be dirty and get your hands dirty with it and just go for it. I think that was the main focus of this project that I find really amazing to work with. So
4 minutes, Ana.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think I got too excited with each project.
It's fine, couple minutes.
Okay, I'm almost done anyway. So I will go ahead with Fermentation is About Magic, which I will briefly tell you about. It's a fermentation focused design proposal that I made in collaboration with Umani Fermentos. And this was to create a healthy relationship with food from an early age, but specifically with fermentation. So how can you get children to eat more fermented foods, which we know are highly nutritious and beneficial to your health? So the proposal here was to create a book of magic and a little wheel of potions, where through storytelling, children were, they were, I forget the word, but they were told to basically read a story about magic and about potions. And then with this wheel, you could create specific potions, which in this case, when I say potions, what I really mean is fermentations. So it was like a set of instructions where you read out, okay, grab something, a fruit that is red, grab this amount of salt, grab this amount of water, place it in a jar and wait, I don't know, a week, and then wait for the magic to happen. And when it's ready, the magical potion will be ready. So that was how we created this kind of game where children were invited to play with fermentation without telling them it was really about fermentation. We were telling them it was about magic and about creating magical potions that would make you feel good and would make you feel magical with it. So that was the proposal for this specific one. I will go again very briefly with this one. I think this was a very fun experiment. It was called the Edible Exhibition by Bampa Sampar. And this was basically bringing out childhood fantasies into reality. So for example, they had edible bubbles, they had posters and pamphlets that you could eat. And it was just about being playful and bringing out these fantasies into real life. You can see here, children are just going crazy for this. And lastly, I want to wrap up with Fake Food by Marty Boucher, which was basically this exhibition that invited kids to also play with food, but to think about this idea of fake food versus real food and digital food. It was kind of the intersection between all of these kinds of foods. So, for example, the first activity was that they came in, they went into a computer, took a picture of themselves, of their faces, and then the computer regenerated that photo and created like a photo of their face, but with food. And that was just to kind of create this link between reality, food, and digital space, basically. And then the second activity that was in the exhibition was to grab different types of foam and geometrical forms into a bowl. And then, you know, kind of as if they were creating a plate of food, but it wasn't actually food. It was like a foam kind of shapes. And then they put it in a fake kind of camera. And then the camera showed this other picture that you can see here on the right, which was kind of like this digital repurposing of the objects that were already on their bowl, but now in a digital form. So here it was a lot about exploring this idea of real versus fake versus digital food, and it was very playful. And yeah, you can see that's basically how the exhibition went, which I find very interesting as well. And that is it. Just to say that all of these examples and all of these references that I've shown you are to show you how we can connect, we can play together, and we can create a sustainable future through the practices of food design methodology and thinking. And you can see all of the different ranges, how it can range from different types of projects and intentions and objectives. But that's basically what I find the most inspiring about these projects. And that's it. Thank you so much.